Momentum is such an important thing when we're talking about sociosexual dynamics. Momentum is so important when we're talking about masculine and feminine energy. It's really easy that when you don't have a certain level of game to get caught up in a woman, which I call the Topanga trap, by allowing yourself to fall into a pattern of the momentum of the relationship being you being overly emotionally invested too soon. That's why emotional discipline is so important. You know, a lot of times guys who give game, they tell guys not to do certain things, like not to spend an extended amount of time on the phone with a woman too soon, not to take a woman on excess dates, and to not to splurge, and to give signs of, let's see, just things that show a high level of social validation, or being overly attentive, right? Because those things can degrade your masculine feminine dynamic. The truth about that is most of those things aren't actually an issue. It's your mindset with them. And depending on your level of game, it's best not to take unnecessary risks, which could lead to the momentum being something that will cause you to overly invest too soon. Because the quickness and your emotional investment in a woman and the amount of attentiveness you give her needs to be something that is equivalent to your ability to both sustain the level that you're giving her and your ability to pull back on it if necessary, right? When you see the signs of that not being reciprocated, or if you see the signs of a woman losing interest because you're showing a lack of emotional discipline. A woman can enjoy all the things that you're doing that make her feel good, that make her feel validated. She can enjoy all those things, but if you do it too much, too soon, she's going to feel as if you're a guy who's low value, because she hasn't done anything to deserve the type of attention that you're giving her. So what you got to understand is, if you're doing that, you can show a woman high signs of interest at times to vet her, right? That's part of your vetting process. One is you want to make sure she's a woman who desires a high value man. And when I say high value, I'm not talking about it in terms of how Kevin Samuels means. I mean a man who values himself highly, a man who has sexual confidence and who has overall confidence. That's what I'm talking about when I say that, right? A woman who wants a man who has options is going to be a woman who isn't going to get offended by how available you are up front, where you don't make yourself overly available too soon. A woman who's looking for a beta male is going to get mad if you're not talking to her 24/7, right? That's one way to vet them out. That's the first part of the vetting process. But afterwards, you need, if you're going, especially if you're looking for a relationship or someone to be a consistent part of your rotation, you have to see if she's the type of woman who's not sexually integrated. And what I mean by that is she's only going to be into you as long as you're being inconsistent. So what I say is be consistent, but start at a slower pace. You force yourself to have to be inconsistent when the way you're dealing with a woman is one to where you're doing too much too soon. Because when you're doing too much too soon, it's going to give that woman spikes. But if you keep her on a high too long, she's going to get bored. Or you're going to have to maintain that momentum in order to maintain her interest, right? So you have to maintain that momentum of what you're doing, or she's going to feel like you're acting out, right? Or she's going to feel, and that's the mindset she's going to take. She's going to see it as you acted out, because she's grown entitled to those grand gestures, right? Grand gestures. That was the word I was looking for earlier. So, to your ability to do those things consistently, and to maintain that momentum, and your ability to pull back if necessary, that's what determines how soon you should be so invested in a woman, and how quickly you should do that, and how much, right? But after you go through that process, that's when you get to the point where after you go through that process, that's where you get to the point where you decide how you're going to deal with that woman, and she is going, okay, something had distracted me real quick, but what's going to happen is you have to determine whether that's the type of woman who, if you give her time, attention, and energy, that she is going to pull away from you because she sees you as low value, because she has self-esteem issues, or because she doesn't value herself, or because she's going to deem you to be less valuable because of the energy and time you're putting into her. So you pace that out. You have to pace it out. And at the point where you see some resistance there, that's when you pull back some. and that's going to regain her. It's either going to regain her or it's going to prepare yourself for when she inevitably walks away. You're doing one of the two. So you have to work your way up that. If you get to the point where the attention and energy that you're giving her is causing her to lose interest and to lose attraction to you, then that's at the point where you say, okay, cool, I need to establish more of her investment, and I need to establish more of my own masculinity and my own dominance in this particular situation, or establish more of the sexual side. And when you take a step back emotionally a little bit, you pull away a little bit, and then you work on that, or you give her the opportunity to walk back into your direction, then that's where you can bridge that gap, and then you can keep moving forward, or you can prepare yourself for her to walk away without you being in an emotional position to where you're going to pursue her when she's walking away, causing her to justify and to rationalize and to feel like she was right in pulling away from you. Like if you get upset with a woman when she pulls away, or you have an issue with it, or you're trying to, everything you do is going to sound like you're begging and complaining her to change her point of view, which is not going to work. But if you show indifference towards her pulling away, or if you pull away even harder, then it's going to activate her scarcity mindset. Like every woman you're dealing with needs to have a certain level of scarcity mindset. Not too high to where no matter what's going on, she's always going to need the constant attention of men in order to maintain her self-esteem and self-worth. Not that high, but you want to have enough of it to where she at least desires yours. And now that is going to include some of wanting other men's attention too, to an extent, but it depends on how far she goes with it. But if it's a situation to where the more that ego and desire for validation is attached directly to you, the better. So you have to understand a woman is probably going to have a scarcity mindset when it comes to somebody or some things. So what you want to do is establish yourself as an influence to where she can validate herself, approve or disapprove based off of your opinion. That's having a certain level of influence. So based off of these things are how invested you should be in a woman, how much you should take her opinion into account, how willing you should be to compromise. If in a certain area a woman is already ingratiated into your program, she already understands how you think and she incorporates that's become her, then she gives you her opinion on something, then that opinion is based off of an understanding of how you think and what you believe and how you do things. And when that's the case, then you should be more inclined to take her opinion versus if she's trying to impose her program onto you. You want a woman who is so on your team so heavy that she learns who you are as a man, and then she will remind you of your own program. She'll remind you of how you do things. Even if you're starting to slip on your own emotional discipline, you're losing momentum, she's going to remind you. And now you shouldn't rely on that, but you want a woman who's on your program to that level. So these are just some things that are necessary when it comes to determining how and when and how much emotional investment you should have in a woman when you're using the biology first approach.